I'd like to call the City Council meeting to order this evening, and thank you everyone for coming out today. Roll call, please, Sonia.
Mayor Andrew Medellin absent. Mayor Pro Tem C.C. Foley Gallegos.
Here.
Councilmember Jose Rodriguez absent. Councilmember Donald Hawley.
Present.
Councilmember Derek Robinson.
Present.
Councilmember Will Oliver.
Here.
Councilmember Charles Rigby.
Here.
And we have the invocation given today by Pastor Fred Thurman. If everybody would please stand.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we're just grateful tonight that we can come to you in prayer and ask for your help and ask for your wisdom. We thank you that we establish tonight your dominion and presence here. Thank you, Lord, to bless the City Council with decision-making, Lord, that is beneficial for us, the citizens, and for our city. We give you thanks now for all that you do for us. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen. And Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next issue is going to be public comment, and the first 15 minutes of this meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be asked to identify themselves and state the subject of their comment. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold their comments until at that time is called. Comments on these items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is open. The council is prohibited by law by taking any action or matters discussed that are not on this agenda, and no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Okay. I'd like to close public comment, and we'll move on to presentation. We have the recognition of Madera High School Madera Robotics team who are here this evening. So I don't see the principal here this evening, but we have Mr. Carrasco who would like to come up, who is part of our district office team. And I do see a vice principal, Mr. Perez, correct? Come on up. And we have a couple of representatives who are on our robotics team that would like to let our city council and our members of the community know a little bit about what's happening with robotics and the great things that are happening at Madera High.
Thank you guys for having us. My name is Armando Correa. I'm from Madera Robotics. I guess I'll start by talking about how well we did this season. We attended 3 events, the Central Valley Regional, which was held here in Madera, and then the Davis Regional, which was held at UC Davis, and then World Championships, which was held in Houston, Texas. So we actually won Central Valley Regional here in Madera, and we got the Engineering Inspiration Award, which is a huge accomplishment. And then at the UC Davis Regional, we had a bad match early in the regional, and it kind of knocked us out. But in Houston, we had gotten to the finals of our division, and unfortunately, there's a piece of tape that got stuck in a robot, and we couldn't move on and finish the rest of our match. But we did win the Quality Award, which is a huge accomplishment considering it's a championship level award. And then, for those of you that don't know, we do build a robot every year. We have 6 weeks to build a robot from start to finish, from scratch. We have a huge, probably about 25 members on roster, full of students that dedicate their time to build a robot, and we put a lot of time and effort into it. We spend late nights at our school prototyping and designing different things. There's a lot of teamwork that goes on in our team, and we really tried to find the best method of completing this year's game. And then I'll pass it on to Grace. so she could finish talking about what we do in our future plans for the team.
Hi everybody, my name's Grace DeRocha, and I'm just going to talk about a few of the highlights that we've had this year and a few of our future plans. So I'm in charge of all of the outreach and community service that we do within the community, and we really like to stay involved in within the city and within Madera. Some of the things we do is we go to a lot of community service events like Toys for Tots, we do Kids Day, and we go to a lot of demos around the schools, such as George Washington, the Cinco de Mayo Carnival. We just recently did. We also have a demo coming up at Monroe, and we plan on doing another one at ETAA. And one of the largest projects we've done this year is we're actually trying to establish elementary school robotics teams within all of the elementary schools in Madera Unified. So we started with George Washington, and that was a great success. We plan on continuing the program for their school this year, and we plan on getting 4 more schools to join us. So that was our largest accomplishment. And in the future, we plan on doing a lot more outreach. We will be going to the Madera Fair again, so you guys can see us there. We'll be demoing the robot all 3 days. We'll also be doing things such as, we'll be doing things such as the Harvest Festival, the Pomegranate Festival that's coming up, and we're also going to be at events such as Day in the Country.
Well, we have several of our robotics students here, and we have some in our lobby that are going to give us this demonstration of their, is it a mini robot you brought today or the actual robot? The actual robot. And I showed it to my class. I'm a school teacher if you're not aware of that. And they got to see what they were going to have to build and how they were going to have to build it and how they have to get the balls in and the points. And it's pretty exciting if you've never seen this robotic team in action. It's been going on for several years. We have the advisor here, or is he in? RC, oh, stand up, RC, come on up. This is the advisor. I'm sure he has some good things to say. We even had a student, I'm thinking, when my son was in high school, who came up with a part of the robot that is now patented and has done very well for himself. But RC, you have a few minutes, 30 seconds to give, and we'll head out to the lobby to see this in action.
Well, thank you guys for having us, for one. I really appreciate seeing all you guys today. I guess some stuff we didn't touch on this today. The teams are doing very well. It's our 10th or 11th season out of, 10. But this year we did very well. We were top 40 worldwide. So out of 4,000 teams across the U.S., China, Israel, Canada, and Mexico, we were one of the best teams. So it is kind of refreshing to see the kids out of Madera doing very well. Some of the kids didn't talk about, out of the 5 schools that did go to Houston, we were the only school to go the farthest. So it was us, Buchanan, Clovis North, Edison, a few other schools, and then Madera was the best school going out of the Central Valley. So it is great seeing the kids out of Madera doing fantastic work, and the robot you're going to see out there is all student-made. And the parts look pretty pro, if I had to say myself. But you guys can see the work that the kids put in. They learn the CNC fabrication, the CAD, the computer-aided design. They're pretty much designing the robot from scratch, putting it together, and then going out there competing. And it's also good seeing us that we're like one of the best in the world, too. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I just want you guys to check out the robot. If you have any questions, please talk to any one of the students. And thank you guys for having us.
Great.
So we want to all head out into the lobby to take a look at this wonderful craft that they have built.
That's pretty cool.
What's up, Big
All
D,
right,
man?
you got it.
Hey, was you out of town last week?
Yeah, for a whole week.
Yeah, you said you. I thought you told me you was going.
Yeah, Cleveland. You see my stuff on the email? And
So this is our robot. Thank you. So this guy is designed to pretty much pick up balls and to automatically shoot them. So the robot automatically will handle all the actions of picking him up and shooting. I don't know if this even works, but so this is like one of the fastest robots in the world actually. So its main premise is to pick up balls and to shoot them. You can kick them back, but it'll automatically it'll drive any direction. It'll pick up balls by itself. And it can turn by, I mean, you can check it out. I mean, if you have any questions. And then Johnny want to shoot it out this way. And then it could turn too, so. But it's fully automated. It does everything. Roll them all out, John, Dan. And so it has to score these gears on a whatever peg, but if anyone has questions, you're welcome to ask. Huh? Oh, no. And it does the full automation cycle of it. And then the students built all of it. And at turns like balls per second, we were the third fastest robot out of the 4,000 teams. So they created this really cool like paintball style mechanism that it indexes the balls through the middle. Hey, you want to pick up gears and pick up more balls, John? Yeah, so in the real thing at the Madera Fair, we'll have it set up. There's like a humongous like boiler. It's like maybe like 8 or 10 feet tall. So pretty much don't hold up a second, but pretty much one of the coolest parts. So you guys take a look at it closely, but it's pretty cool. So like out of all the teams, they have a conveyor belted up. But on this robot, it'll suck the balls through the center, and this guy will can you turret Isaac for it? But it does the full turret motion, and then on here there's an automated camera that gets placed in there. So I guess we don't have the actual target, but it'll vision track
RC.
They probably over there playing with the machine.
Sonia, do we have the mic? Okay, if we could have each of the robotics students say their first and last name so we can congratulate you as the City Council and City of Madera. Would like to congratulate our robotics team and all the effort and time that you put into making a great name here for us in Madera.
Armando Correa.
Grace DeRocha.
Isaac Dortevilla.
John Akana.
Bailey Vasquez.
Daniel Chadwick.
Angel Oliveira.
Michaela Delatorre.
Julian Hernandez.
Daniel Gomez.
Isabel Escobar.
Joseph Reed.
Taylor Anderson.
Alexis Tornero.
All right, and RC, is there only one advisor or do we have another advisor?
We have like 10 mentors, but they're all.
Okay, wonderful. So here we have certificates from you, for all of you at City of Madera, to congratulate you on your accomplishments for each and every one of the students that are here and maybe not also present. If you, RC, could present them with them. But right now, we'd like all the robotic team advisors and district office people up behind our City Council people to take a photo shot, if you would please.
Make sure we get that senior and freshman up here.
I just started getting on with this. So I was traveling and I hurt my hand. Come on in. Come on in. Come on, guys. Come on in. Come let me hold. And one guy has the other guy, so I'm like, I don't know if you guys. Come on in. Sarah was out here too.
Okay, you're going to be funny. Is that good, Sonia? Did you see everybody?
Low rider, low rider.
Ready? We're going to do a couple, so smile. One more.
And while the students are coming down, I am a Madera High School graduate, and several of our council people are graduates of Madera High. And students, I just want you to let you know that I am Coyote proud, and if I was to get cut, that blue blood shines through. I love Madera High. I wish I was there again. It was the best 4 years of my life. So I hope that you make it all that it can be and enjoy every minute of it, because it is wonderful to be a Coyote now in the year of 2017. So thank you again for giving us your time and bringing your wonderful, magnificent robot and showing us the world of robotics at Madera High. Thank you again.
That's cool. That's neat.
What a special treat for everybody out there. That was really cool. I've seen it several times. Hopefully, if you did not experience the actual event that happens at Madera South once a year, read the Madera Tribune, find out the next time that it's going to be here in town. It's usually the first weekend in March, and if you have time to volunteer your time or even go out and watch it, it's a great experience to see. Next, we have the consent calendar. Do I have anything that needs to be pulled from my fellow council members?
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And I have Sonia will call for a title.
Actually,
Not
if I
yet?
could make a late distribution announcement first.
Okay.
And then once we get into those other items, we'll address the title.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we're going to C1, public hearing and consideration. Oh, we have a late distribution?
Yes.
Okay.
I just need to make a brief announcement, and then we can move on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, members of the public are advised that documents related to the following agenda item were distributed to the council less than 72 hours before this meeting. Under Section C, hearings, petitions, and bids, item C2, subject matter is a resolution adopting the Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. A revised applications cover page was distributed to the council this evening. Extra copies are available at the podium for members of the public wishing a copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Moving on to hearing and petition, bids, resolutions, and ordinance and agreements. C1, we have a presentation by Nick Salinas.
Mayor Pro Tem, if we could have you read the title so the folks know what
Okay.
is on the
Which-
agenda, right off the agenda. C1.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, Mr. Salinas. Public hearing and consideration of introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Madera, California, amending a portion of Chapter 5 of Title 5 of the Madera Municipal Code pertaining to taxicabs. Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. I have to apologize in advance. This won't be as entertaining as the robotics presentation, but we'll definitely try. So just slightly touching on the background that you've probably seen in the staff report. This originated from a new applicant looking to conduct business as a new taxi business within the city of Madera. At that time, looking at the ordinance, we found that there were some titles and positions to local employees that really didn't fit any longer. They were no longer existent in those positions, which led us to go on and revamp the ordinance as a whole. So moving on to that, looking at the overview. So what we're going to be covering today is why the need for the update, some of the research that was conducted, the new changes as it applies to the police department and also our department. We'll take a look at the overview of the new process, the costs, the rates of fares, and then we'll open up for some questions. So why the need for the update? The last update, well, as you can see there, we're still doing horse and buggy if you haven't noticed within the city. But the last update was in 2006, so after 11 years of this ordinance not being updated, that's where some positions and titles felt irrelevant. We also looked to streamline the process to make it more applicable and more easy for the individuals to become approved as taxi businesses. And we're also looking to increase safety as it pertains to the vehicles, the drivers, and our citizens. There was a realignment of some responsibilities, and applicability-wise, this will be applicable to new and also existing taxi cab companies. And the changes we've done, they also fall in line with the Vision 2025. So some of the research we conducted, I looked at ordinances, particularly locally, was from Tulare and Turlock, being that they had the same population as we do. We also looked at two major cities, which were Seattle and Sacramento, just to kind of get a feel for anything significantly different that they may have had that we didn't have. We also collaborated, which I feel is really key. We actually sat with all the local cab owners here locally, got their input on the ordinance. We wanted to do it with them and not just put it on them, and the response from them was really positive there in support of the ordinance as presented. We also coordinated with the Madera County Weights and Measures as they certify the taxi meters. They make sure a mile's a true mile, a minute's a true minute, and the rates that are set are actually accurate per the taxi meter. We also met with the police department, business license department, and our city attorney. So new changes as it pertains to the police department, there will now be a live scan requirement, which is a fingerprinting process. I'm pretty sure it checks your background as a whole. Anything that they see as a red flag, that's something that they can bring up and speak to. They're also going to require a 2-year Department of Transportation health screen. So that's just the drivers themselves will be going to a certified DOT health screener to say they're physically fit to drive a vehicle with our citizens. We're also going to require a 10-year DMV printout, and they will also be issuing a ID card that the drivers will be they'll have to wear at all times while they're driving the vehicles, so we know that the individual driving the vehicle is the individual that's been approved to drive the vehicle. On our end, we renamed the department manager. Part of the retitling, the title for the department manager was the code enforcement director, which is no longer existent. We realigned that to the city administrator or his or her designee, so it'll be relevant for much longer to come. We did remove the certificate of public convenience and necessity. After speaking with legal counsel, they advised that this is something that usually comes into play when we're working in regards to an alcohol or liquor sales type of license. If in the event we do, for some reason, have a big need for more taxis, if a casino comes into town or something of those means, we can always look at re-putting that back into the ordinance. But now with two current operators and one new business looking to apply, we felt that there wasn't really much value in having it in the ordinance, which is why it was removed. The taximeter weights and measures certification, that's something that our department will be looking at as well. The Certified Bureau of Automotive Repair vehicle inspection is something new as well. So what we're going to have the applicants do is take the vehicles to a local certified Bureau of Automotive Repair facility, and what they're going to let us know is that the vehicle is fit to be safely driven on the road. The major safety components, tires, brakes, lights, and so forth. And then we'll also have a vehicle quality inspection at our office as well, too. So as far as the quality inspection goes that we're going to be conducting in our office, number one, we're looking for cleanliness. We obviously know there's going to be wear and tear, but we're not really going to be too focused on the small details. But the overall cleanliness of the vehicle is one. Seat belts have to be fully operational. We're going to make sure there's heater and AC. As we know, in the winters it gets a little cold, and we wouldn't want windows to be frosting up and not being able to see without having the proper items to operate to clear that up. The seats, as long as they're in decent shape, if there's really big tears, rips, or just pieces of the seat missing, that's something that we would tag them for. Doors have to lock, and locks have to operate. We'll also be verifying the taximeter, making sure the windows are visible, and you can see out of them clearly. We're going to also check for lights, horns, and wipers. The gauges, we're looking for no-check engine lights. The speedometers work properly, odometers work properly. The vehicle will need to be equipped with a spare tire and a jack. And then interior lighting has to work. Wheels and hubcaps, if there's major cracks or there's a really big obvious dent in the wheel, that's something we would tag for. But we obviously know there's going to be normal wear and tear, scratches from rubbing against curbs and so forth. The parking brake has to be operable. The condition of the body, as long as there's no major physical impacts to the body, we're just making sure to look that the body's actually aligned. There's no major aspects that'll affect the vehicle when it's moving. The paint, obviously we're going to see chip paint, scratch paint, but if the bumper's one color and the trunk's another color, that's something we would tag them for. Color uniformity between the businesses, and then also if there's any significant hazards. So if we see a lot of leaking oil, or if the vehicle's steaming, or if something just really is significant to where it shouldn't be on the road, we also have the authority to tag the vehicles for that. So overview of the new process, it would start off by going to the business license department and getting your business license application. This is as it applies to the business owners. And if you take a look at the blue, which is the police department side, they're pretty much going to be screening the drivers, while our department will be screening the vehicles and the business. So in this case, they would go to the police department to get their background check going. Then they would also require the 10-year DMV printout, the DOT health screen, the live scan. On our end, we'd be having them fill out an application for the business. We would look at the weights and measures device, the taximeter device, and to make sure there is a seal on it from the weights and measures to show that it's been recently certified. We'd look for the Bureau of Automotive Repair certificate. We'd conduct our quality inspection, and if all checks out well between our department and police department and business license, they'll get an approval from there. So as far as the costs go, business license, it is what it is. It's a $50 fee plus the percentage of your gross receipts annually. The police department, their cost for the background check per the fee schedule is $25. The 10-year DMV printout is $3, and the live scan process is $49. On our end, for the application processing for the first application and the permitting process, and to look through all the documents that they give us, to do the background search on the business, and to do entity research on the Bureau of Automotive Repair facility, that ran up to $120. And the quality inspection will be $40 per vehicle. And all the amounts that we've based our fees on are based on, the cost recovery amounts are based on the currently hourly rate of $40 an hour. So if we have a 3-vehicle and we have a company with 3 vehicles and 3 drivers, we did a cost scenario for the cab companies to know what they're looking at. So that would be your business license, your taxi cab permit, an inspection of 3 vehicles, 3 background checks with the police department, the 3 DMV 10-year printouts. The live scan would amount to $521. But if you look at year 2, you're only paying a percentage of your gross receipts plus your vehicles that will be inspected annually. In meeting with the cab owners, one thing they did bring to our attention was the need for an increase of their rates of fares that they charge to the public. The most recent increase was in 2003, so you can imagine over 14 years, there probably is a need to increase the rates of fares. And after looking at what they proposed in contrast to local rates, we felt that they've done their diligence on their end. They kind of know the surrounding area's rates, and we feel that the rates they proposed are fair. And more importantly, the code requires the increase of rates of fares to follow the consumer price index. So if you look at the cumulative inflation rate from 2003 to now, it's at 36.5%. If you apply those to the current numbers, which is the very top line, that'll give you exactly where it would be. So the proposed rate, as the owners requested, which we do support and feel that it is in line with surrounding areas and also the consumer price index, it would go from $275 to $350. That's your first mile, or when you first get in the vehicle. And then per mile, it would be $275 at the new rate. And the wait time would be 35 minutes if you're at a stoplight or if you're not moving the vehicle. So with that, we're happy to entertain any questions.
Do my fellow council members have any questions?
Yeah, I do have one. Excuse me. How many cab services do we have in Madera?
Currently, we have 2 companies. We have one new applicant looking to come on board as well.
Councilman Rigby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Nick, I have a couple of questions. The quality inspection, is that going to require extra training or some type of certification of those that are going to be doing it through code enforcement? Is that something that, the bar, or is that something that they're able to say, hey, we now approve you as doing that? And then I'm concerned that this is going to take a lot of time away from code enforcement officers that could be out doing other things.
I understand. Yeah, so to be clear, there's 2 inspections. One's going to be the bar inspection. That's going to be the major mechanical components of the vehicle, braking system, lights, and to make sure that the vehicle is actually fully, safely operable on the road, the mechanical stuff. The quality inspection is going to be more for the cleanliness, the overall.
It's more of a kick a tire kind of thing?
Yeah, just the items that, kind of should be there. Obviously, the bar wouldn't tag them for, some body damage, but on our end, to keep up the appeal of our city, I feel that that's why we brought that in. And as far as utilizing time, we've included the cost recovery hours to recover those hours. And time-wise, I would say we're looking at, roughly just off the top of my head, maybe 12 vehicles. And if we're dedicating an hour to each vehicle, that's once a year. So you'd say that we dedicate probably about 12 hours a year to the quality of the vehicles.
I'm just looking down the road. I obviously, right now, our streets are not filled with yellow cabs, but I'm just kind of looking down the road. I don't know if this is something that I would, want our code enforcement to be responsible for later on down the road, per se, if we did get more.
Yeah, and if we did get a really big surge and increase in a need for cabs, that's something we can look at realigning or finding another method to do so, maybe outsourcing it to another third-party vendor locally in town. Okay. But as of now, we felt that 12 hours a year isn't too
and then, Nick, would you mind going back to the slide that was showing us the rates? Sure. And hanging out there for a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, right there. Mr. Richardson, this evening, I know we're just introducing. Are we at all within jurisdiction to make any changes that we may see in what's being proposed tonight as the new consumer price index for Madera?
Actually, what you can do, there's really no action on the rates tonight. That was just more for information. It will come back, and I know Nick's been talking to Tim, I think. It'll come back. They have to be set by resolution. So actually, this wouldn't involve Tim. I take that back. And that'll be brought back at the adoption phase. So when they bring the resolution that adopts the rates, then at that point it would be appropriate to discuss it.
Okay.
And you could certainly, I mean, it's the city council sets them per our ordinance. So,
Nick, was there a reason why the cab owners felt that $350 as the initial mile was fair? When I'm looking at Bakersfield is $3, and they're a way smaller city. Merced is $3.30. They're probably a little bit more comparable to what we're operating with.
This is something that we came up with just in discussion at the meeting. We didn't take time at the meeting to go back and analyze. I pulled this information after the fact that they presented that, and that's kind of what I found. And I put a 2008 next to Turlock because that was the last time they revised their ordinance, which I'm guessing, and it's just a guess, which is the last time they also looked at their rates, which is why they're substantially lower than the majority.
This might be something that I personally would want to spend a little bit more, or encourage staff to spend a little bit more time on. I think that that's something that I would feel more comfortable with, being a little bit more comparable to some of the cities surrounding us. 350 seems a little high to me. But that's all the questions I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rigby. Councilman Oliver.
I think most of my questions were answered. I'm curious, what type of revenue stream currently do we have as far as our collection of the gross receipts?
That
Any
would be
ideas?
done through a business license.
So currently today we're not collecting any.
Yeah, for the two operating cabs, they do both have license, and they pay the percentage of the gross receipts, and it's based on their annual sales.
Let's see, Tim, how good are you? Do you know off the top of your head any ideas to what that is annually, or?
Mayor Pro Tem, if we could ask Mr. Prisbilla to come up to the microphone, we would appreciate that.
On but not on.
Testing. Oh. So I do know that when we have business license invoices sent out, that it is capped at just over $1,000, no matter how high their gross receipts go. So it's capped at a rather low amount, and so we're not looking at big dollars related to business license fees from gross receipts. Does that answer your question?
It does. I think I was just a little confused. I think I associated with the local rates of fares a percentage of those fares going to the city, but I think it just confused as far as the
business license.
It just primarily being business license fees. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Right. And then as far as the Bureau of Automotive Repair Facilities, how many do we have in Madera that are certified to conduct that work?
Just over 100.
Just over 100?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
I was surprised too when I found the list on their website.
Can't get away with that one.
Great. All right. No, thank you.
Yes, there's plenty of options.
Councilman Rigby.
Just one more. I don't know if I want to open up Pandora's box, but I'm curious. Uber, Lyft, where do they fall under this category, if at all?
Defer to legal counsel.
Through the chair, I'll address that. Uber and Lyft are actually regulated by the state. The state has decided that it gets to regulate Uber and Lyft and those things like it. They're done through the California Public Utilities Commission, and largely because they're structured completely different. You don't hail Uber, you actually set that up in advance. There's no money changing hands, things like that. So we looked into that when we looked at this, and very quickly found that no, the state has decided it knows better than we do. So
that's okay. I'll let them on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, any other questions from our council members? Thank you, Mr. Salinas. At this time, I'd like to open it up to public hearing. Just a reminder, if you could state your name and address when you get up to the mic, please.
Hi, my name is Vince Enriquez, address 28810 Posey Avenue, Madera, California. I'm the owner of Transportes Pablo Taxi for the county. I also I already have my application submitted as of 2 years for the city. We've been working with Nick and on this right here, on the rates. We came up with these rates compared to local cities that we've seen, like Greeley has a population of 24,000. It's almost a third less than us, and their rates are $3.40, and the rates here have been $2.75 for a while. Bakersfield, their prices are at $3, but then again, they do have Lyft and Uber. That's competition over there. Here, there ain't that much, so that's why we wanted our rates to be a little bit higher for the city. So I'm just acknowledged of the price. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enrique. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, I hear none, see no one coming up to the mic.
So you bring it back for action.
So I bring it back for action.
Mayor Pro Tem, just make sure that for the record that you actually close the public hearing. That way somebody has a good record.
At this time, I close the public hearing and call for title.
Thank you. Introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Madera, California, amending portions of Chapter 5 of Title 4 of the Madera Municipal Code pertaining to taxicabs.
I move to waive further reading and introduce.
Second?
I have a reading and a second.
Did you have a motion in a second? Yeah. You can call for the question. You can call for the question.
A call for a question?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion's been passed.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas and staff.
Good job, Nick.
Good job, Nick.
Next, I'd like to bring up C2, public hearing and consideration of resolution adopting the Community Development Block Grant 2017-2018 Action Plan, approving allocations and authorizations of the city administrator to sign the certifications, and that report is from our grant writer, Yvette.
Good evening, Council. This is a public hearing to approve the City of Madera CDBG Action Plan 2017-2018. Before I go any further, HUD requires that we provide translation services to anybody that may need it. I'd like to make that announcement at this point. ¿Es this on? Si alguien necesita traducción durante esta audiencia, por favor de dejarme saber en este momento, alzando su mano. Okay, no. HUD requires that cities prepare an annual action plan for each of the 5 years covered under the Consolidated Action Plan. This would be the third action plan under the 2015-2019 Consolidated Plan. HUD also requires that cities obtain significant public input in the development of its action plan. Staff complied with this requirement by attending several meetings throughout the city, as well as a neighborhood watch meeting. Additionally, bilingual notices were published in the Madera Tribune and posted throughout city facilities, soliciting input for the preparation of our action plan. City of Madera further complies with this requirement by engaging the Review and Advisory Committee. The Review and Advisory Committee listened to 3-minute presentations from every applicant and reviewed each application for consistency in addressing the goals approved under the Consolidated Plan. During the April 5th City Council meeting, Council deliberated over the merits of each application. The proposed final allocations that you made during the meeting will appear on the screen in a few minutes to allow you to briefly review the Council's final allocations. But before I do that, I'd like to explain a slight difference this year during this year's preparation of our action plan. Typically at this time, HUD has provided final allocations to jurisdictions. However, this year, due to congressional delays in appropriations of the budgets, HUD has not released final allocations to cities. However, HUD has provided options for cities in preparing their action plans while at the same time waiting for the final allocations. One of the options is to allow, staff recommends that Council approve final allocations, approve City of Madera CDBG Action Plan for 2017-2018, and exercise HUD's option to allow slight proportional adjustments to final allocations in the action plan. In other words, once we receive final allocations from HUD, we will proportionately allocate the difference, either a decrease or an increase, to each of the awards. What you have before you is the recommendations made by RAC and the recommendations made by staff, as well as the Council's final proposed allocations. Staff is estimating that the funding levels will be the same as last year. However, should there be a change in these estimates, we will come back to council to approve changes in the allocations and allow for the required public comment period and then submit to HUD before the required timelines. Subsequent to the City Council approval and release of the actual allocations from HUD, the third-year action plan will be submitted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development prior to the required deadline. That concludes my comments. I would like to answer any questions that council may have.
Councilman Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I have a couple of questions. One, you said there are options, and then you just gave me one. What were the other ones?
So some of the options are to decide what percentage you would want to increase or decrease each of the awards by. You can also decide that you want to only increase an award by a certain amount and similarly decrease a certain allocation by a certain amount, or you can add another award that is not yet awarded, or eliminate the award of an applicant in its entirety. It all depends on the final allocations numbers, but you can do it proportionately by percentage or decide to award or not award an applicant.
Where are we with time limit? Like, I mean, being that there has been no allocation made by HUD, technically we're kind of in this CDBG purgatory. What is our timeline then? I mean, how do we, let's just say that, for example, council decides that they want to award as presented with a stipulation that if HUD were to allocate less funding, we want to bring it back for a reallocation. Mm-hmm. What timeline are we kind of working with?
We anticipate that HUD will release final allocations before the beginning of July. So if the allocations are significantly different, we would come back to council for allocations.
For reallocation? Even if we approve this allocation?
Only if it's significant, meaning beyond 10% difference of our estimates.
Okay, I was just going to ask that. Those are my only questions for now.
Thank you, Councilman Rigby. Councilman Oliver.
I was going to ask Yvette if you knew if this was tied to the continuing resolutions and if they were looking to make adjustments later in the year, perhaps the fall when the next one is due, or it sounds like it's more of an administrative consideration, so to speak, internally. I don't know, Dave, if you want to comment or know at all. Or
Chair Council, thank you. The Chair Council member, I'm not sure I can add much to what you don't already know. The new administration is an opponent of HUD and like programs. I think there's going to be a struggle in the Congress, and in many respects, your crystal ball might be better than mine on how that turns out.
Sure. Okay. I know in years past, too, when we've anticipated possible increases in the allocations, we have provided direction to say, you know, for Program A, if there is an increase in an amount of money that we might dedicate most of those, you know, increases to that particular program. It sounds like in this event we may be anticipating potential reductions, if anything, and so if that were to be the case, I would imagine that, you know, sharing that reduction proportionately might be the most fair thing to do. But I'm certainly hopeful that this CDBG program will stay around as it fills many different gaps in our community as well as here at City Hall, and I appreciate the presentation. I think that's all the questions I had.
I'd like to open this up for public hearing. Is there any questions or comments? I see none, hear none. So I'd like to close public hearing. Take it to a vote. All those in favor?
Ms. Mayor, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve
thank
the
you.
allocation, the CDBG allocation as presented.
Second.
Mr. Richardson, before I cast my vote, do we need to indicate in our motion that we are allocating or that we're approving staff to allocate percentage-wise the funding accordingly if there is?
That actually is already in the proposed resolution, and I think the motion actually is to adopt the resolution. Is that correct? Yeah. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I see none, hear none. Oh, sorry. Motion is
Mayor
passed.
Pro Tem, I didn't catch who the second was by. Who
The
made
second,
the second motion?
Councilman Hawley.
Thank you.
I'll speak up next time.
Moving on to C3, correct, Sonia?
And actually, that'd be C3A, I believe, because it's
C3A.
a two-parter.
Do I need to read? Do I get to read all those 10B?
Just read consideration of minute approval.
Okay.
Engineers report.
Whew. Consideration of a minute order approving engineering report for the citywide landscaping and lighting assessment district zonings of benefits.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. This is the 2017-18 Engineers Report, and both myself and John Scarborough will be presenting. I apologize. I want to go ahead and give you a little bit of history on the Engineers Report. It's prepared on an annual basis. It's been going on since it was formed in the city, nigh on 20 years or so. And what it does each year is it reviews the past expenses and revenue to understand where the ending balance is on each of the zones. It then projects the expenses and revenue for the next year. With that in hand, we're able to go ahead and make recommendation on any adjustments to the assessments based on that data. With this upcoming year, it also incorporates everything that Parks has learned about the zones. And John is here to go ahead and discuss a little bit about what they have learned about the zones over the last year and a half or 2 years.
Thank you, Keith. As Keith has indicated, your Parks Maintenance Division has gained a lot of experience about this program over the course of the last 2 years. Much of this is related to matching maintenance levels to available funding. The result of this work is that strategies have been identified that allow staff to adjust service to levels that provide an acceptable product, yet more accurately align maintenance costs with the budgetary limitations. In some instances, the adjustments amount to actually just very few dollars. In others, the amounts are slightly more substantial. When a zone is identified as being underfunded and a 218 hearing is indicated, staff begin analysis to determine if service modifications can be implemented that will bring the affected zone budget back into balance. Services that are specifically considered for reduction or elimination are tree trimming, water and electrical use, and general landscape maintenance. Tree trimming is usually the first service that is eliminated, and many times it is all that is needed. Zones that are more significantly underfunded may require additional steps. As a last resort, staff looks for opportunities to balance the budget by reducing actual landscape maintenance service levels. As an example, underfunded zones exist within this program that consist of only a few shrubs, a few trees, and usually an automatic irrigation system. In a situation like this, staff may introduce the following strategies to reduce maintenance costs to align with the available budget. We may significantly reduce watering to a level that provides for plant sustainability without generating excessive weed growth. Periodic or slightly less trimming of shrubbery may occur. Consistent herbicide applications to better control weeds likely would occur. And we explore less frequent visits and obviously a reduction in services. With the addition of some or all of these strategies, staff have been successful in reducing labor costs. It's important to note that while this strategy is effective in a large percentage of our zones, areas with more elaborate infrastructure and large areas of turf may not benefit from the steps indicated to the degree needed to avoid a 218 hearing. In the case where a zone fails and funding does not exist or is well below a reasonable level, in some cases it's zero, staff refrain from performing work in the affected zone until said time that the condition of the landscaping is deemed as health or safety hazard. At that point, staff is mobilized to perform a brief and limited cleanup. That's the extent of my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Keith, and I'll be available for questions at the end.
Through the chair, just a quick additional point of clarification on John's presentation. In those instances where we're addressing a safety issue, the source of the funds is your general fund. That's the only thing that's left at that point.
Moving on, what do we now know that we did not know before park staff began maintenance? Well, it's been about 2 years, coming up on 2 years at least. The maintenance quality is better and with almost no complaints. Now that's a good thing, but it's also a mixed blessing. When we do not have complaints, if we do a Proposition 218 hearing because we anticipate being short, it could be that the residents see that as when they get the ballot, they see things look fine to them and they vote no. So it's great that we have no complaints. It means Parks is doing their job and doing good landscape maintenance, but again, it's a little bit of a mixed blessing. We also know that the number of proposed Prop 218s is way down, and I'll go ahead and discuss that a little bit more here in just a second as we move on through this. When necessary, we also know that we can match expenses to the revenue, but that's up to the point, and John's mentioned that. And once we get to a certain point, we have to start doing safety-type measures. We do have one proposed change for the engineer's report this year. The engineer's report has been prepared according to past practice. It has reviewed the costs and the revenue with each zone. But one of the zones, actually 9 zones in the 10 series, 10A through 10I, the report shows that the recommended assessments vary from a low of $0 to a high of $317. Each of those zones, to some degree, shares in the landscaping throughout that area. All the zones benefit from the landscaping in that area. So we'd like to pull that and do some additional investigation there and see whether we can do something that we possibly haven't done before. Potentially consolidate zones would be one of those options. What does the report itself say right now? I'm going to first talk about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, before we moved from private landscaping to city-maintained landscaping, 40 of the 80 zones had a proposed Proposition 218 hearing. 23 of those zones failed to pass. This year we have 14 of the 80 zones that have been proposed for Proposition 218. If you accept staff's proposal to remove the 10 series, that drops to 10 zones. If the city still had a private contractor, Proposition 218s might have been significantly higher than 23. We can't say that for certain. What we do know is we had 23 that failed a couple years ago. Why a reduction in the Prop 218s? Well, number one, Parks' ability to go ahead and adjust their maintenance out in the field has paid off. They're doing higher quality maintenance, and the number of Prop 218s is dropping. They're adjusting the maintenance levels to match. What happens now? If council declares its intent to levy assessments, we move forward with first notices. We put those in the paper and also in the front of City Hall. It's a 45-day notice. Let people know that we're moving forward with the assessments. We send out the ballots for the votes. Those also go out 45 days before the hearing occurs, and the hearing itself occurs on July 19th, as shown in the staff report. And we have possible outreach. A couple years ago, when we did the 40 zones of Prop 218s, we did have outreach. We had town hall type meetings. At that time, there were 6 different meetings for the 40 zones. They were throughout the city. This year, it's as many as 4, but possibly as few as 3, because we have about 10 zones One or two of those will be fairly low. We might go ahead and combine, but generally speaking, we've applied those zones to the areas where they occurred before. We also had an all-zone meeting. This was kind of a follow-up, a catch-all. If people didn't attend the first town hall type meetings for multiple zones, then they had the ability to show up to the second one. That second one was not well attended from what we can recall. So we're not sure whether that would necessarily be a benefit to the city to do that last one. Staff is prepared to do it, however, should council decide to do that. And there's possibility of notification of neighborhood groups. We have a number of neighborhood groups. We can notify them, let them know to put out the word if they feel strongly about it. And one last thing we didn't do last time, better utilization of social media. We weren't as well into it then as we are now. Trying to think whether we even had the Facebook in place at that time. But that would be one other possible way of putting notice out. This map looks even worse than it did before. It's kind of faded. I think everybody can see it. The bluish represents the zones that have a Prop 218 hearing. You'll see one out at the airport. That one there currently has a $0 assessment. And then another one down here at the bottom left, and then several on the right side. A little bit before the meeting, I noticed one of the zones didn't get on there. It's 20C, and it's right in this area. What you see is 4 different school sites that were used last year. The zones, if we move forward with the town hall type meetings, we've checked with the school district. There's a chance if we go into June that these schools will be completely shut down. They're willing to open them up for us, but it would be a charge of $123 per school location, which is not necessarily a big deal, but it would be reflected in either the zone costs or the general fund would cover it. Perhaps a bigger deal is we showed up to 1 or 2 sites last year and the schools didn't know we were coming. So I can't say that if we elected to go this direction that they would be there waiting for us to open up the doors. The city does have certain venues to go ahead and do this. We might do them all at the Burgon Center potentially. Let's see, I'm going the wrong direction. The recommendation from staff would be to approve the engineer's report with amendments as may be requested. One of those is polling 10I if council agrees, and any other suggestions or comments that you might have. The engineer report moves forward as it is with any amendments. When it shows up at the July 19th meeting, that's when the public will have a chance to comment and votes will be tallied. If there are rejections, we adjust the engineer's report. Rejections of an increase, we adjust the engineer's report to revert back to where it might have been if there was no request for an increase. If you have any questions, John and I are happy to answer them.
Councilman Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I do have a couple of questions. The first is, if council does decide to move forward with the staff's recommendations, I might suggest that we move away from trying to use schools. I think that's crazy that they're charging us, number one. I'll go on the record as saying that. And I would propose that we would approach our partners at the Madera Ministerial Association, and I think that churches would be more than willing to open up their sanctuaries and or meeting places for the hour or so that we need to utilize it in order to inform neighborhoods of upcoming or possible upcoming elections. So I might point staff in that direction. The other thing I'm kind of excited about is the possibility of consolidating zones. Is 10 the only one we can consolidate? Can we maybe venture into consolidating more than just 10?
The whole city?
The whole city, perhaps?
Perhaps I'll remember to turn on my microphone as the evening goes on. Through the chair, we'd like to start and get our feet wet. go through the process and begin looking at the possibility of consolidation on a region-by-region basis. There's certainly an attraction to doing a citywide zone. The problem, of course, is that it requires a majority vote. And I would suspect that thinking back upon the level of effort you put into Measure K, getting a citywide vote on a landscape zone probably looks like about the same thing. So my recommendation would be, let's start with our 10 series. Let's see how that goes. Let's learn as we go, and we'll bring those lessons back in terms of future implementation.
Understandable. Good strategy. I think that those are my only questions then, because the rest of them would revolve around consolidating other zones.
Great question, Councilman Rigby. Councilman Oliver.
With respect to the consolidation of the 10 series district, any preliminary estimates as to the potential cost savings for a bulk of the residents in that area? Have we kind of calculated that, or any rough estimates there?
We did a quick calculation on it. What happens if you consolidate is you essentially go ahead and take the total cost to maintain all the landscaping shared amongst all zones and then divide it by the number of parcels. The quick calculation came up to $38. That didn't start to look into cost savings. From the formula that we use right now, I wouldn't expect that it would drop by more than $1 or $2 to go to 38 to 37. But what it does do is it takes that spread of 0 to 317, moves it to 38, and 38 as compared to many of the other zones is really quite a good rate. Most of the zones are under about $100, but there's not a lot down in the 38 range.
I just wanted to, this was definitely one of the more difficult topics of discussion in 2015. Not only did we have these landscape maintenance district elections, but you had the state's mandates as far as water conservation. So not only were we trying to look at adjusting or increasing fees, at the same time we're turning off water in those medians, and also with the water and enterprise fund increases as well. So you had a lot of convoluted information, a lot of things happening all at one time. I'm relatively optimistic that with it not being the drought that it is and those other factors not being a part of the discussion, that we may have a better success rate. And I just wanted to give thanks and kudos to staff with our Parks and Rec department for really carrying the water on that. It was a difficult situation to pivot to our Parks department to take on that role, but I think it's worked out pretty well as it could, and I think you guys probably had to have a lot of stub toes during that process, but I appreciate your hard work and dedication to getting that done. So.
Okay, any other questions from my colleagues? I'd just like to add one thing. I was out with John at some mediums, and he shared with me a very important information I think we need to know as a city. We put in drip lines in a lot of our mediums to save water, but the Parks Department was very smart and left the sprinkler systems intact, that when we get a lot of water soon, that we can go back to using those sprinklers in certain areas and also have our drip. So thank you for looking, have an open vision of what can come when the water starts pouring in our city. So thank you, Keith and John, very much.
No.
Yes.
So, yeah. This is not a public hearing. No, this isn't a public hearing.
Okay. So now we're moving on to C3B.
I don't see that it's a public hearing. Do you? We need action if we could take action on the two items separately.
I'll make a motion to approve item C3A, which is consideration of a minute order approving the engineer's report for citywide landscape and lighting assessment districts.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion has been passed and carried.
And then I'd also like to make a motion to approve item C3B, which is a consideration of a resolution of intention to levy and collect annual assessments for citywide landscape and lighting assessment districts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's been carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm ready for council reports. I will start to my left. Councilman Hawley.
I just have one small thing to report. Wow. Just last week, I was honored at the Madera Unified School District from the Teachers Association of Parkwood for being a community involvement leader with their children. So I thank our Mayor Pro Tem C.C. Calles for recognizing me to be honored. So that was a tribute. Other than that, I ain't got nothing to report. That was good. Oh, come on, y'all.
You should have brought your award so they could see how beautiful it is.
Start hanging them up right here. Run out of wall space. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Oliver. Councilman Hawley. Councilman Oliver.
Yeah, I had an opportunity this past Saturday to participate in the second annual Strides for Inclusion 5K event, which was put on by a local nonprofit group, Madera Special Needs Sports and Recreation. It was a really wonderful event. Proceeds that were raised from the race are going to go towards increasing programming as far as recreation programs and social, as well as sporting for individuals who have special needs or disabilities. This is a really great success story in that this effort really started with a small community of concerned parents who had children or loved ones with special needs but lacked many of the opportunities that other young people are able to enjoy, and so we were able to work in tandem with them as far as our Parks Department and trying to make more recreational programming available, and so it's been a really great partnership, and it's been great to see them expand, to not only expand those opportunities for their loved ones, but for many other young children in our community. So it was a great event. I think they had over 125 people who registered online, and it was held at Madera High School, and definitely look forward to working with them to help continue that success, and I appreciate our park staff for lending a hand and being such a great partner with them as well.
Thank you, Councilman Oliver. Councilman Rigby.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for jumping on suggestions that I had made over the last week. I've gotten some great feedback on cleaning up downtown with our trash situation, and I appreciate staff moving diligently on that and coming to a solution soon, as well as working on some of our IT stuff, being able to offer city emails. I appreciate you guys kind of getting on that, and I just want to say thank you. The other thing I'd like to inform my colleagues as well as those in attendance tonight is we're quickly reaching the end of the school year, and it's a great time to celebrate the class that's graduating. And so this Sunday, the Madera Ministerial Association will be hosting its annual baccalaureate event for the class of 2017. As always, my colleagues are welcome to join. I know the mayor will be addressing the class, which is bittersweet for him because his son is a part of that class, which is why he's not here tonight. He's watching his son's baseball game, but as well as several teachers and students from not just Madera High, but as well as Madera South. And it's a great night. Valley West Christian Center at 6 p.m. Other than that, that's all I have to report.
Thank you, and Councilman Rigby. Councilman Robertson.
Oh, yes. I just returned from Ohio, so I'm still on Ohio time. It'll be 10:15 right now. And I was in Zanesville. It's a very hilly countryside. And then I visited Cleveland. They have world-class museums. But I was happy to return home to Madera. And even though when I was away, I was still keeping an eye on Madera. And one of my Facebook friends, he mentioned that people are using the restroom behind behind the alley of some businesses, and then I was thinking about how we can get stakeholders together, decide about some portable restrooms, or even permanent, like they have in Europe. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Robinson. I had a busy Saturday. I got to attend the end of our small business workshop, and I'd like to thank staff for volunteering and coming out and helping our small businesses. I saw Steve and Chris and Dave. Did I miss anybody? Because I came towards the end, so I'm not sure if anybody else was there. So it was pretty exciting to see the enthusiasm of businesses wanting to open in Madera. I also attended the Madera County Arts Fest. That was a wonderful event, got a lot of great ideas, a lot of people having a good time out there. And then we had our oil recycling out at AutoZone. Didn't get as many oil filters in. We're thinking we're going to change locations, head into town and see if we can up the ante on bringing in some more oil filters. I'd also like to thank my colleagues here for helping me and staff. This is my first time as Mayor Pro Tem at the bench, and kind of found out 5 minutes when I arrived, so wasn't as prepared as I would like to be. So thank you for everybody out there for being patient in me learning the steps here. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our attorney.
See, at least you turned your mic on. I didn't do that. Okay, the council will now adjourn to closed session. First, for conference with legal counsel in pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 in 3 matters. Next, there will be conference with legal counsel in anticipated litigation that's significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 in 1 matter. And the last is conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation. That's still under the significant exposure exception pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D4, and that's in 1 matter.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming, everyone.
We're just going to adjourn to closed session.
Oh, sorry. Close. Just hang out. We'll be right back. I know everybody's going to wait for my final remarks. They're going to want to stick around for that.
right, you ready?
We're ready.
Okay. The council adjourned to closed session in 3 different items. First being conference with legal counsel in pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 in 3 cases. No reportable action was taken. Second was conference with legal counsel in anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. This was one matter. No reportable action was taken. Last being conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, that's in significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D4. One matter, no reportable action was taken in that matter either. That's all I have.
All right. Well, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Next regular meeting will be June 7th.
Where to use that?
Thanks for sticking around, everyone.